Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. The Orphaned Secrets. Episode 12. Milan's POV. During the Alpha's meeting. To say that I was creeped out and frustrated to see Jasper's clone wandering about the pack house as if he owned the place was the understatement of the century. What was worse was that I had to hide the fact that I was a new mother and deal with the bitching that I wasn't attending the morning training sessions. Of all the memories Jasper chose to omit with his clone, it had to be the one that affected my family directly. Jason and I were definitely going to give him a piece of our minds when this was all over. Raising twins is hard enough as it is without dealing with this nonsense. Oh my God, there you are! I heard a frantic voice. I turned to see Sarin running towards me. What? I asked. Don't what me? The alphas from the other packs are showing up, and I asked you to get everything together for dinner, she shouted. OSH, T. I slapped my forehead at my absent mind. I'm so sorry, the twins kept us up last night, and then I had to go to training to get that thing off of my back, I explained, referring to Jasper's clone since no one in the pack was supposed to be aware of it. Duh, just go, Milan, she pointed to the kitchen. As I was heading over there, I unexpectedly ran into Tkale Thornwooda, of all people. Tkale Thornwooda. I was surprised to see Jason's sister. Hey, she exclaimed and hugged me. I guess I chose a great time to come home, she said with a big smile. You were supposed to come back months ago. I told her, lifting my brow at her. What can I say? The Tkale Thornwood own world never stops, and my internship kept getting extended. You missed the birth of your niece and nephew. I'm sorry, geez, she replied, not bothering to hide her annoyance. And you abandoned your mate. Justin is fine, she insisted as she swished her hand at me, excusing her choices. Besides, we already made up, if you know what I mean, she added while wiggling her brows. Ew. I don't need to know what you and your mate did. I responded, covering my ears. Please, if you and my brother didn't, you wouldn't have had pups. Tkale Thornwooda. I screamed at her. I don't have time for this. There's an alphas meeting starting in a few hours, and I need your help getting everything set up with the kitchen omegas. What? Why me? Because, in case you've already forgotten, you're technically a gamma female too. Which means my duties are your duties. My mate is an omega. My rank drops to his anyway, she defended. Not when it comes to pack duties. I argued and grabbed her arm. Come on. I dragged her away with me with her whining behind me. Even though we had to scramble to get everything finished on time, we were able to get it done with teamwork. Tkale Thornwooda was bitching non-stop like she always did when it came to pack work and duties, but she finished all of her tasks. Dinner was served, and I was the most uncomfortable being around all of these fake alphas, their sons and betas. I looked over at Jason, and I could tell he wasn't happy with all of this either, mostly because we had to leave our pups with their nannies at their tables because we couldn't lead on that we had kids to Jasper's clone. It would cause major issues. I couldn't believe we had to babysit the clone on top of everything else. I hate this, I whispered to Jason. I know, baby, but we have to maintain appearances until this is all over, he replied. If my babies forget me, there's going to be hell to pay, Jace. Milan, it's only been half a day. Calm down. The only thing they remember is eating and pooping. I elbowed him in the ribs, making him grunt and earning me a death glare. Unless you want to sleep in the guest room, I suggest you turn your eyes elsewhere, Jason Lexington, I growled. He glared again but only for a second before turning back to his food. Just as I was taking a piece of meat from my plate, Sarin gasped, and her eyes started to glow. Sarin. Jasper looked at her. As soon as her eyes turned back their chocolate brown, she looked terrified. Get away from the windows, she screamed. As soon as she did, all of the windows in the dining room shattered. Jason knocked me down to cover me, and I could see in my peripherals that pack members and guests alike were jumping over chairs, leaping over tables and over other individuals trying to hit the floor. From underneath the table, I could see people be lifted into the air by what looked like. Are those tornadoes? I shouted at Jason. Oh my God! The kids! We both got to our feet and raced over to where our nannies were. Thankfully, both of our parents had made it to them first. Get them to the bunker. Jason quickly instructed them. Milan, go with them. I nodded my head and made sure to help other pack members along the way to the bunkers. I had to make sure I steered everyone clear of the wind cyclones that were destroying the inside of the castle. People were running all over, panicking. Suddenly, the front and back doors flew open as more tornadoes made their way through the living area. People left and right within the path of the twisters were being flailed across the room. Go! Everyone go towards the bunkers! I shouted as the wind carried my voice. Milan! I heard a familiar voice. Melody! I shouted back as she ran towards me, but she was swept up by a twister. Melody! The twister went out the back door and kept getting further and further away. What spot? I looked around and could see Michelle and TKL Thornwooda also trying to lead pack members to safety. I figured that they had it under control, and my kids were safe in the bunkers already, so I went after the twister that picked up Melody. Milan! Where are you going? Kendrick shouted at me as I passed him. Melody, was all I said as I pointed to the tornado that was carrying her. I didn't need to say anything else. We both shifted and ran after it. It was faster than we expected, and that's when we knew something definitely wasn't right. Milan! This isn't normal. Nosh, Kendrick. Dark magic? It has to be. Patterson? Who else? We ran after the twister, and we could hear Melody screaming for us. She could see us through the funnel from within the heart of it, and that was another dead giveaway that this was dark magic. Kendrick! Melody shouted for him, but it sounded slightly muffled. I looked closer and saw that she was in some kind of bubble. It was a cage of some sort. Milan, go back to the pack house. I'm going to keep following her. No. That's an order, Milan. Kendrick. I ground to halt. He just had to use rank on me. I grumbled in frustration and had Ivory take us back to the castle. I hadn't even realized how far we had gone to follow Melody. As I was running back, I could see several other twisters going in the same direction as the one carrying Melody. That was when I noticed one carrying a blonde in a pale yellow top and black leggings. Ivory, isn't that what Sarin was wearing? I believe you are right, Milan. I changed direction as fast as I could and went after her. I mind-linked her, hoping it would go through. Sarin. Milan. Go back to the pack house. No. What about you? I can handle myself. Make sure pack members are okay. But Kendrick and Melody? Don't worry about them. I think we're all going to the same place. I'll keep them safe. Look after Sam and Leanne for us until we get back. But Sarin. That's an order, Milan. Ivory hit the B.rakes again. I was so pissed that everyone was using their rank on me. I wanted to help, but I couldn't defy direct orders. This was new territory for me since I was always on the front lines before having the twins. Ivory huffed as we went back towards the castle. I was appalled at the amount of damage the tornadoes had caused, all of this in the span of a few minutes. I was even more shocked to see dead bodies littered everywhere. Most of them were the visiting alphas. I jumped through one of the open windows that had been shattered in the initial attack and saw even more dead bodies. "Milan, look!" Ivory said to me. She turned our head, and I saw Jasper's clone, headless. Ivory gave me back the reins, and I quickly shifted back, grabbing a sports B.ra and a pair of shorts that had been scattered around the dining room. Luckily, these were some of the only clean pairs of clothes lying around. I looked around to see the damage, and it was bad. "Gamma!" I heard someone call out to me. It was one of the kitchen Omegas, and they were dragging Mr. Williams by the shoulders. "SHT, what happened?" One of the twisters picked him and threw him across the kitchen. "He was impaled with one of the curtain rods that came loose," they explained. "Get him to the hospital, now. Make sure Dr. Andrews knows that there are more coming his way and that he needs a full staff." "Yes, Gamma." As they dragged him off towards the hospital, someone else called to me. "Milan." I turned in the direction of the voice and saw Keaton, Irene, Diana, and Kelsey. "You guys, are you okay?" I asked them. "We're fine." "What spot was that?" Keaton asked, pointing outside. "I don't have a clue, but that's not what is important right now." "Keaton, Melody was taken by one of the tornadoes, and your brother went after her. That makes you the beta in charge. Irene, go find Sirena, and you guys get down to the hospital. There's going to be a lot of people who need medical attention," I briefed them. They just stood there, dumbstruck as they tried to absorb everything I said. "Go!" I shouted, and they moved as fast as they could. "What about us?" Kelsey asked. "You guys go find the others. If everyone is in one piece, start triaging the injured and the dead." "Diana, do you know where the tags are?" She nodded her head. "Good. If they can walk and talk and aren't bleeding to death, tag them as green. If they're injured but aren't immediately dying, tag them as yellow. They'll probably heal on their own in a few hours anyway. If they need immediate medical attention, you tag them as red and get green tags to help take them to the hospital for treatment. If they're dead, tag them as black and move on." They looked at each other and nodded before taking off. I looked around and saw that most of the Alpha's clones had been brutally killed. This wasn't what we were expecting at all. This was something far beyond what anyone could have anticipated. As I continued to look around the dining room and helped get people to their feet if they were alive and had them move to help others if they were able to, I watched as Diana triaged people inside, as Kelsey and Natalie triaged outside. Thankfully, I was more green and yellow than I was red and black from where I was standing inside. This went on for a good 20 minutes or so before I heard a ferocious snarl from outside. I looked out the window and saw Blade with 3 other wolves tailing him. "Jasper," I said to myself. I watched as he and the other wolves behind him jumped through one of the big holes in the wall of the castle. I made my way around from the dining room to meet him. I knew he was going to want a damage report. How the hell was I supposed to tell him that not only was his sister kidnapped by a force of nature, but Sarin as well? Chapter 69. Jasper's POV. After Milan and Jason had caught us all up to speed, my blood was boiling, and I saw red. I had completely let my guard down, and to add insult to injury, Kellen had been one step ahead of us the entire time. I was kicking myself more times than not. The fact that I still couldn't get a handle on things when it came to Kellen and this bullshit situation was driving me mad. Why couldn't I get this right? What was I doing wrong? Son. I looked up to see my parents in the doorway of my office. Once everyone left to go put out their own fires, and Griffin and Richard returned to Golden Moon to double-check on their pack, I secluded myself in my office to try and figure out our next course of action. Even though several pack members were taken, one of them being Sarin, I wasn't as worried because I knew that Sarin and Kendrick would keep them all safe. "Dad, what's the total count?" I asked him, referring to the deceased pack members. "Not including the clones, we lost about a dozen pack members," he answered with his head down. "SHT, was all I could mutter. "Make sure their families get all of the accommodations for memorials and burial services. Spare no expense," I told him. "Of course," he replied. I expected that to be the end of the conversation, but they continued to stand there and stare at me intently. "What?" I finally asked, frowning at them in annoyance. "Don't use that tone with us, Jasper," my mother snapped. "Mom, no offense, but I'm not a child anymore. Don't talk to me as if I am one." "Then stop acting like one," she shouted. My mother rarely ever cursed, but when she did, I knew that she meant business. "Jasper Valencia, get your head out of you," she continued. "You need to own up to your mistakes. You don't think I know that? I'm feeling guilty enough as it is. I don't need you adding to it. Don't speak to your mother that way," my father boomed. "Jasper, I let you slide with a lot of things because you're the alpha now, but that won't stop me from kicking you if you keep disrespecting your mother that way." I huffed at him in irritation. "Pack members have been taken by Kellen. 3 of whom are your mate, your sister, and your beta. Kendrick wasn't taken, he went after Dot. Kendrick is still missing regardless. We have no idea where they are." "What are you talking about?" "They're at Silver Lake. That's where Kellen has been hiding out." "Wrong." "What?" "Jason and his father just went to Silver Lake to scope out the area, and," he paused and looked at me, his facial expression full of concern. "It's gone, Jasper." "What do you mean it's gone, Dad?" "There is a gaping hole in the foundation. Whatever lair Kellen and his family had used to remain hidden is gone. All that's left is a giant sinkhole. Kellen is gone, and so are the captives." "That's not possible." "It gets worse," my mother revealed. "I spoke with the Lunas of the other packs, and they were attacked as well. They, too, lost members. Thankfully, their death tolls weren't nearly as large as ours, but they still suffered losses, nonetheless. What we noticed, however, was that pack members who were taken are ones that carry rank." "Can you elaborate on that?" I asked her. "All of the packs did a head count after they were attacked, and they found that only pack members that carry a rank, or are directly tied to someone with rank, were taken. In our case, your sister, Sarin, Zoe, Victor, Owen, Lisa, and Darius." "Wait, Aunt Zoe?" "But Milan said that Zoe never made it to the bunker. Felix said they had gotten separated in the midst of all the chaos, and now they can't find her." A pack member later mentioned that Zoe was picked up by a twister and taken. Luna Millie, Alpha Ramsey's mate, said that their 16-year-old son was taken as well as their beta's niece, who is only 12. Luna Rowena, Alpha Matthew's mate, said that their gamma's mate was taken and their pack doctor, who is her brother-in-law. "Her sister's husband," my mother explained. All of the packs had a bare minimum of 3 people taken. What the hell is Kellen trying to do? I exclaimed. None of this would have happened had you not just sat around and made stupid plans instead of taking action, Jasper, my father yelled at me. I trained you better than this. But in the last couple of years, you've become weak and soft. Me? You're the one who told me to never jump the gun. To always have a plan of action. To never kill out of revenge or cold blood. That it's not what an alpha does. I also told you that an alpha needs to know when to make the tough decision to end a life if it means saving the lives of others. I never told you to use dark magic to do your job for you. I never told you to second-guess your mate day in and day out. I also told you to listen to your ranked members. Kendrick and Jason are your beta and gamma for a reason. They're supposed to help you run this pack. But you've been ignoring them more and more, and you're even dismissing them as if their opinions no longer matter. Since when did you ever see me disregard Dylan or Felix? What's worse is that you're always dismissing Sarin as well, my mother added in. Sarin came to me saying that you wanted her to give herself to Cale Thornwood. You what? My father exclaimed. Are you out of your mind, Jasper? What the hell were you thinking? Sarin was so hell-bent on trying to kill them. To go after them. I just wanted her to be included in all of this. I defended. Sarin even agreed to it. Jasper, your heart may have been in the right place, but your head wasn't. Sarin is pregnant. And she may have agreed to it, but she had her doubts. That's why she came to me. Because she felt that she couldn't go to you, she insisted. What? What do you mean she can't come to me? We fixed our bond. Our bond is stronger than ever. If it weren't, we wouldn't be expecting right now. Your bond as werewolves may have been fixed, but your bond as Alpha and Luna is still in shambles, my father argued back. Jasper, remember what I told you when Sarin first came here, and we first found out what she was. To be there for her. To be her foundation. To support her. Treat her as an equal, I responded. Exactly. Have you done any of that? I mean, wholeheartedly been there for her. Been her foundation? Supported her? Treated her as an equal, he questioned. I was taken aback by his accusation. Of course, I have. Are you sure about that? What are you insinuating, Dad? I'm not insinuating anything, son. I'm merely stating a fact. It's something your mother started to notice after it was revealed what Sarin had seen the day of Griffin's scheduled alpha ceremony. Ever since she had that vision, you have not been treating Sarin like an equal. You've been treating her like a child. You say you trust her and support her, yet you stopped her from killing Kellen and his family. All this would have been done had you just let her do what needed to be done. Dad, I was only stopping her from becoming like Kellen. What? You mean a cold-blooded killer? My mom retorted. I looked at her in shock. Don't be so surprised, Jasper. Your clone said that to her face. What? Jasper, clone or not, that thing was you in a sense, and it said things to Sarin that were awful and foul. It's one thing to say that you don't want her to kill because you don't want her hands to be stained with the life of another, but to call her cold-blooded and a murderer in one sentence, my mother said accusingly to me with full-on disappointment in her tone. But I would never. You may have never said it to her face, but at some point, those were your thoughts. Or have you forgotten that thing was made up from your DNA and your memories? My father enunciated. I gulped, knowing that they were right. Jasper, just admit that you're jealous of Sarin, my mother told me flat out. What? I'm not, I stopped mid-sentence when I saw the look she gave me. You're not? Then why won't you let her be herself? Why not tell the entire supernatural world who your mate is? She questioned. If your mother were even half as powerful as Sarin, I would shout to the world who she is. I would be proud to brag about her, my father gloated. Even if doing so would put her life in danger. I shot back. I wouldn't have to worry about that. She would have already proven that she is more than capable of taking care of herself. You forget, other than William and the Moon Goddess, Sarin is one of the most powerful werewolves to exist in this century, if not the most powerful. And you keep trying to cage her up and hide her away. Open your eyes, Jasper. She's no longer the slave you had to rescue from Blood Moon. Think about it, your children are going to be just as powerful as her. You can't hide them from the world. You can't protect them from the dangers that their kind will face for the rest of our lives. What you can do, rather, what you're supposed to do is support them, cherish them, and be there for them. But don't hide them, and don't be jealous of them. You are an alpha, and being an alpha comes with one of the deadliest of sins, pride. I took in a sharp breath. Your hidden jealousy is why you were susceptible to Layla's mind games 2.5 years ago. Had you just embraced what and who Sarin is, that never would have happened to you, my mother declared. Even though you say you fixed your bond with Sarin, it doesn't change the fact that you still hold resentment that she is more powerful than you. You were proud of her in the beginning, but slowly, I started to notice the small things every time she came into another power. She would be excited and go to you because of it. Even though you smiled on the outside, I could see the turmoil in your eyes. Not only were you afraid of the fact that she was continually getting stronger and stronger, but you were also envious. Being jealous of your mate is nothing to be Cale Thornwood aimed of, Jasper, my father said, almost as if he could read my mind. We all get jealous of our mates in some way, shape, or form, but don't use that as an excuse to resent them or hinder them. I was jealous of Lizzie, my mother admitted. The pack loved her while they feared me. I hated that I couldn't be personable the way she was with everyone. But I had to remember that as the Luna, I wouldn't always be able to be friendly with pack members. I was in the same position as your father. I had to lead the pack alongside him, and that also meant getting hate from people. Lizzie, on the other hand, was a natural at just making everyone feel loved and included. Her death was the biggest blow this pack ever had. But I never once resented her for it. That's why I was able to tell her how much I envied her but could remain her friend at the same time. But your jealousy of Sarin's powers is toxic, and no matter how much you say you love her and are proud of her, the fact of the matter is, your jealousy is why you refuse to let her harness her full powers. I closed my eyes and bowed my head in utter shame. I always thought that I was able to hide that I was, in fact, jealous of Sarin and her powers. I was proud to have her as a mate, but I also wanted to keep it a secret how powerful she really could be. Goddess, how could I have been so immature and stupid? You're a man. It comes naturally, my mother mocked. My father and I both looked at her, stunned. Oh, don't even give me those looks. You both know it's the truth. My dad and I exchanged glances at each other and scoffed at how brutally honest my mom could actually be. How do I fix this? I finally asked after being completely humbled. You need to get your head out of you like I said before and go find your mate, young man, my mother scolded me. How am I supposed to find her? You said it yourself that Kellen's lair at Silver Lake is gone. Jasper Valencia, stop being a stupid little boy and think like a man. You're an alpha and a werewolf at that. Start acting like one and use your senses, you dimwit, she said, smacking me across the head. Ow! Go! Get out of this pack house and go find my daughter-in-law, or there will be hell to pay, she shouted and literally kicked me, forcing me out of the office. This is my office. Do you think I care? Get out! Go find her! She tried to kick me again. Okay. I grumbled and ran out of my office as she slammed the door shut. I scowled at the door. I know you're scowling, Jasper. Don't make me go out there, she said in a mind link. I hated how she could do that. I pulled myself together before I headed down to the main floor, and I saw Jason and the other guards he took to Silver Lake walking in. Hey, my dad told me what you guys saw, I told him. More like what we didn't see, he replied, giving me a fist bump. What's the plan? We're going after them. What? But we have no idea where they went. Then we track them down. You're a tracker, Jason, so do your thing and track them. Let's go find our friends and my mate. Gather all of the trackers that can travel. I'm going to make a few calls. Jason just nodded and went to assemble the men we needed. I pulled out my cell and called Griffin. Hey, Jasper. What's the damage at your pack? Everett, Thomas, who was one of the newborns that came with Brent, and Jasper's mate. How many deaths? 4, thank the goddess. It could have been worse, but Xandra and Alexa were able to get a lot of people to safety when the tornadoes hit. I'm sorry, Griffin. My stupid decision is what got all of us into this mess in the first place. I never should have made the decision to use clones again. I should have learned from my past mistakes. What's done is done, Jasper. There's no use crying over spilled milk. We heard that Kellen has disappeared. How are we going to find him and the others? We're going to use what the goddess gave us, and we're going to track them down like we're hunting prey. Aren't you worried that whoever ratted us out will tell Kellen we're trying to find them? I'm betting on it. Besides, with Sarin being with them, I know that she will keep the captives safe until we find them. You seem to have a lot of faith in her. I know I haven't been the most supportive mate or alpha when it comes to Sarin and her powers, but I've learned my lesson and then some. My parents have already expressed their disappointment in my actions, and I don't want to let them down again, let alone, let Sarin down again. I refuse to just sit around anymore. This ends one way or another. Glad to see you coming to your senses. Xandra and Alexa have been worried about you. They have. Dude, it was no secret that you coddled Sarin and tried to keep her some secret. Even though I disagreed with it, I think it will work in our favor right now. If they don't know what she is, then we have the upper hand and the element of surprise in that factor. Thanks. What's the plan? I need you to tell Richard and Jonah what's going on and to have them contact the other alphas to see if they're willing to join the hunt. If they don't trust me anymore, then I won't blame them. They have no reason to trust me anymore. But, tell Richard and Jonah that I gave authorization for them to tell the others about Sarin and who she is. Hopefully, that will sway their decision to help. Also, I won't stop you from telling everyone who Xandra and Alexa are either. I never should have inserted my opinion the way that I did. She's your mate, and Alexa is Brent's mate. I should have let you two handle their situation how you guys saw fit. I apologize. Hey, it's cool. Believe it or not, we're family now, and family supports each other. We're going to get through this, and I know for a fact that Sarin will forgive you for everything once this is all over with. How do you know that? Because Xandra said so. Xandra. Don't ask. She and Alexa must be growing into their powers pretty quickly. Yeah, no kidding. But I'm happy that she is. Their powers are going to come in handy. What do you mean? Xandra spilled to me what she saw in the future. Even though she wasn't supposed to, she was too worried about Sarin and told me what she saw. Wait, I thought she wasn't allowed because it could change the outcomes in more ways than one. Only if we try to change it. She's not trying to. I just know that our clones will be with us as we descend into wherever the hell Kellen is hiding now, and that Xandra and Alexa will be following us. What? Yeah, if you sense them, just leave it alone. They're supposed to be there. I don't know why, but I'm not going to question it, and neither should you. Sarin was meant to be taken. So don't beat yourself up over it. Okay, if that's what Xandra said she saw, then I believe you. Alright. I'll talk to Richard and Jonah and let you know as soon as we're ready to head out. See you soon. Bye. If Sarin was meant to be taken, then maybe this plan wasn't a complete failure after all. But that didn't change the fact that I messed up. Not just with Sarin but with everyone else. When all this was over and done with, I planned to announce Sarin's identity to everyone in the supernatural world. I no longer cared if people feared her. She was meant to be feared. Then maybe our lives wouldn't be so chaotic anymore. It was time to embrace the fact that my mate, the Luna of Blue Lake, was the most powerful wolf in the world, and I was proud to call her mine. Chapter 70. Sarin's POV. Sarin. 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 I stirred awake when someone kept shouting in my ear and shaking me. I slowly opened my eyes and was met with a face I never wanted to see that close, ever. Ah! I shouted and pushed Kendrick away from me. Finally, he exclaimed. Kendrick! Don't ever put your face that close to mine again. Well, it's either my gorgeous face or that of Cale Thornwood Patterson. I caught my breath, scowled at what he said, and shuddered in disgust. Yeah, that's what I thought, Kendrick retorted at my reaction. Where are we? If I know. Where's Melody? I heard that she was taken too. She's not here with us, as you've already noticed. She's being held in another cell, but she's close by. That I know for sure. Are you able to link with her? I asked while holding my head from the sudden dizziness. Yeah. She said that there are others with her. A few of our pack members, including Aunt Zoe. I snapped my head up at him when I heard the last part. Zoe? She was taken too. Yeah. I'm sure Uncle Felix is throwing a fit. Jason and T. Cale Thornwood too. Who else? I asked him as the headache quickly faded. Dot says it's a handful of pack members from every pack in the region. Mostly relatives of ranked members. Why are we separated from them? I think it's because I wasn't planned, and you, well, you're kind of obvious, Kendrick replied. I pursed my lips, knowing he was right. Are you good? He asked me. I nodded my head and stood to my feet, only to find that I was chained to the wall. What spot? I thought out loud as I looked behind me. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that we are both chained to the wall, he mocked. This isn't silver, I replied as I surveyed the cell. Kendrick was chained to the wall opposite of me, and our chains were equidistant from the walls to the center. Yeah, it's something stronger. It doesn't hurt us, but it sure as hell can hold us. I've already tried to break it, he responded as I was yanking on the chain with all of my might. Ugh! I said, completely exasperated. What the hell? Won't this break? I enunciated each word as I kept pulling on the chain. Because it's made out of the strongest steel alloy, someone explained from behind us. I turned around to see an unknown female. And it's backed with dark magic, she continued while looking at her nails and smirking at me. You sad little werewolves aren't strong enough to break it. I'll show her who's sad and little. Callie snarled in the back of my mind. Who are you? I asked her. I tried to read her mind but couldn't. Don't even try to read my mind, little wolf. I know that you have mind-reading capabilities, so I cast a little spell on this cell to prevent you from doing so, she informed me. Then answer my question. Whose spot are you? My name is Morgan. And you're out of your league when it comes to me. You must be the dark witch that's been helping the Pattersons, Kendrick stated. Ah, look who has a brain after all, she ridiculed him. She is weak. What do you mean, Callie? She may be a dark witch, but I don't think she's as powerful as she claims to be. I think when we are at full strength, we will be able to break through whatever barriers she has put on the cell. Goddess, I hope you're right. Because I'm ready to kill everyone and get home. Patience, Sarin, remember what our mate said. We can't just go killing everyone. We don't even know how many enemies there are. I get the feeling that there aren't very many anymore, considering Kellen did kill more than 24 people recently. Quit conversing with your wolf. Morgan shouted at me. That's all you furballs ever do. Converse with your damn wolves. That's enough, Morgan. I heard an all too familiar voice. I snapped my head towards the dark corner and sure enough, my worst nightmare came forward. Hey, if it isn't the little pipsqueak alpha that likes to hit women. Kendrick jeered at him. I smacked Kendrick with the back of my hand since this was no time to be stirring the pot. Cale Thornwood calmly approached the side of the cell where I was standing. He then stretched his hand through the cell bars as if to caress me. Don't touch me, I growled while swatting his hand away. Before I could distance myself out of his reach, he lunged forward and grabbed the back of my head while yanking my hair towards him. Kendrick snarled and tried to come towards me, but the chain prevented him from getting any closer, and I was just outside of his grasp. Let go of her. Or what? Cale Thornwood spat and looked at me. The L.UST in his eyes made me want to vomit. He yanked my head back further while pulling me towards him, and that's when he put his face as close as the cell bars would allow him. He inhaled deeply, and I could smell his sudden arousal. It smelled like a landfill. Goddess, you smell good. Though, it's a little different, he said, making me freeze. You used to smell like roses, but now, you smell like roses and champagne. If champagne had a scent, it would be you, he continued. I gulped silently, praying to the moon goddess that he didn't realize that my change in smell was coming from my unborn pup. As he was practically daydreaming while inhaling my scent, he loosened his grip on me just enough to where I could move my head. I looked him up and down, and it was then I saw that the years have not been good to him. Even though Cale Thornwood was more of average height, he was never one to let himself go. He had pride in his looks and his body. But now, he wasn't just short, he was skinny and had barely any muscle left. What happened to you, was all I could say to him. He opened his eyes slowly and stared at me with pure hatred. What happened to me? What happened to me? How can you be just as stupid as you ever were? He shouted and tried to throw me to the ground. Keyword tried. I barely tripped over my feet but caught myself. I turned and looked at him, and I realized just how weak he really was. You happened to me. You and that goody two-shoes know it all, Jasper Valencia. Are you seriously blaming me? I huffed. None of this would have happened had you not kidnapped hundreds of humans and turned them into super rogues to attack my pack. None of this would have happened had you just accepted me as your mate. God, this again. You rejected me first. Remember. You didn't have to accept it. Are you for real right now, Cale Thornwood? After all of the you and your family put me through for all those years, did you honestly expect me to accept you as my mate? I told you that even if you hadn't rejected me, I never would have accepted you as my mate. Even if it wasn't you, I was planning on leaving Blood Moon after your alpha ceremony. You what? You heard me. I would have rather been a rogue than been your mate, or anyone's mate in that pack for that matter. The only thing that stopped me from becoming a rogue was Jasper and my bond to him. You were mine first. Get over yourself, Cale Thornwood. I wasn't yours first. I'm pretty sure that Jasper already told you countless times that he and I were mated to each other long before I ever went to Blood Moon. He wasn't lying. Jasper knew I was his mate when he was 18, and I was only 10. He knew about it before your dad challenged my dad. Or, I should say murdered my dad. You're lying. No, I'm not. You see, Cale Thornwood, unlike you, Jasper and I are both pure-blooded alphas, and we both come from a long line of pure-blooded alphas. That is what allowed both of us to be drawn to each other, even though I was only a child back then. I was in love with Jasper before I even knew what love was. But after suffering through what your family did to me, I thought he was a figment of my imagination or someone I dreamed of as a child. It's true, Kendrick chimed in. Cale Thornwood and I both looked in his direction. When Jasper took over Blue Lake and chose me as Beta and Jason as Gamma, respectively, he told both of us that we had a Luna already, but she wasn't of age and that we would have to wait several years. Unfortunately, we all thought she died in the Silver Lake slaughter. Well, none of that matters anymore. We're already 10 steps ahead of him and the other alphas. Did you honestly think that they could use multiple clones to try and trick us? If there's one thing I learned about Jasper is that he's a creature of habit, Cale Thornwood spat at us. I had to admit that he was right about that. Jasper was a creature of habit. Figuring out what he was going to do was too easy. Figure what out? Kendrick retorted. We all know that you had moles in all of the packs. Some banished pack members who went rogue, and some who were still actual pack members. Jasper may be a creature of habit, but you and your sorry excuse of a father are just as predictable. We know that there is someone else on the inside of one of the packs. That's how you knew the Alphas meeting was a sham and that there would be clones. Someone tipped you off, and it's someone that knew of our plans. That's the only way that you are here could pull off the tornadoes. Cale Thornwood started to clap slowly and obnoxiously. I guess you figured it all out, hey? Cale Thornwood mocked. You're right. We did have more moles in the packs. What kind of leverage do you have over them? I shouted. Leverage? What leverage? They're doing this out of their own free will. My eyes widened because I knew for a fact that he wasn't lying. What? Kendrick gaped at him. Are you saying that these people are willingly betraying their packs? Yup. Why? Kendrick and I both exclaimed. Why else? They hate their alphas. They're tired of only being second or third best or at the bottom of the food chain. They think their pack hierarchies are weak, so when we came a Callan, they came a walkin' with no strings attached. Kendrick and I looked at each other in shock. Ken, you know what this means, right? I asked him. Yet, whoever told Pippi Longstocking here about our plans did it because they wanted to. Well, all of this information is nice and all, but I have some spells and potions to work on, Morgan announced and walked away. And I have some things to take care of with my father. Even though we're in a very special hiding place, it doesn't mean that your stupid mate won't eventually find us. But by the time he does, he's not going to want you anymore. What are you talking about? I demanded. By the time that pathetic Jasper Valencia finds you, you'll be pregnant with my pup. He may have been the one to take your virginity, but I doubt that he knows your body the way I do. I watched you grow up. I watched as your body filled out in all of the right places, even though you were starved half of the time. I know everything about you, Sarin. Or should I call you Ryan? I glared at him as he eat his PS while checking me out. I had goosebumps all over my body, and Callie made hacking noises in the back of my mind. If you even think about touching her, Kendrick growled. Oh, and what are you going to do about it, Beta? It's not him you have to worry about. Cale Thornwood turned to face me. Callie had pushed to the surface, and my eyes were pitch black and probably had swirls of silver. What spot? Cale Thornwood stepped back when he saw our eyes. If you touch us, I will rip your heart out of your C.Hest and make you eat it. Callie snarled while gripping the bars and shaking the cell. I could instantly smell fear on Cale Thornwood. What do you know about us or our body? You're weak. Your wolf is weak. And we would rather die than let you touch us. Go ahead and run to your daddy, Cale Thornwood. Without an official alpha TLE, you're no longer an alpha. You're lower than an omega. You're lower than dirt. You are a rogue. Callie and I said in our voices together. Cale Thornwood scowled and slowly turned away before running out of wherever the hell we were. After I heard a door close, I let out a deep breath and turned back to face Kendrick. He was staring at me. With wide eyes, his brows furrowed, and his PS in the shape of an O. Why are you looking at me like that? What spot was that? He replied. What was what? That. What you just did. How the hell did you and your wolf both speak at the same time? Doesn't everyone do that? I asked. No, Sarin. Not everyone can do that. I've never seen that. He walked up to me as close as he could. I met him halfway. Something tells me that only you can do that because of who you are, he whispered. My eyes widened, and Callie whimpered. Ah. Third-person POV. As Cale Thornwood slammed the door behind him, he finally let out the breath he had been holding in out of fear. What Sarin had just done was something he never witnessed before in his entire life. He had never seen or heard a wolf and their human counterpart speak at the same time. It was as if both Sarin and her wolf loathed him so much that they both had to tell him at the same time. If that were the case, then Cale Thornwood would leave Sarin no choice but to love him. Wow, she must really hate you, Tessa quipped as she stood next to him. You were listening. Listening? No. Watching? Yes. I mean, after all, the cells are under 24-hour surveillance. Just s.ux that there's no sound. Then how can you possibly know she hates me? What if she was proclaiming her love to me? In your dreams, little brother. Tessa spat at Cale Thornwood. Even a deaf man could tell she hates your guts and then some. Her facial expressions were nothing but pure unadulterated hate. Off, Tessa! Cale Thornwood shouted. You sound like a kid. Grow a pair and get over her. She's not that great anyway. I mean, okay, fine, she has alpha blood and is some freaky color wolf that is faster than most wolves. But other than that, what makes her so special?" she countered with nothing but jealousy in her voice. Cale Thornwood knew that Tessa didn't see or hear what had just happened. "What does it matter to you anyway? The only thing that matters is that I want her. And I will have her." "How?" "Simple. I'm going to take a page out of Layla's playbook." "What? You can't be serious." "Oh, but I am. But, I'm not going to take away her memories." "If you're not going to take away her memories, what are you going to do?" Tessa asked cautiously. "I'm going to swap them." Chapter 71. Xandra's POV. After we found out about everything that happened at Blue Lake and how Kellen and Cale Thornwood had been multiple steps ahead of us the entire time, I knew that my visit to the future was coming true. Sarin had been taken, and with her being pregnant, I was terrified that something would happen to her. Though, one thing that seemed to have changed was the fact that there were no additional clones. It was hard to say with absolute certainty that who I met in the future was a clone because things felt off. But it honestly could have just been me freaking out over being somewhere I had never been, let alone in a different time. I told Griffin what I had seen, even though I knew I wasn't supposed to. But I couldn't just idly stand by while my sister was in the hands of the crazies and not say anything. I was pretty sure that my telling would change something, but if it meant finding Sarin and everyone else sooner, then I would take the punishment. "Xandra, Jasper is asking if you remember seeing a building or some other landmark during your brief trip to the future." Griffin asked me as he was on the phone with Jasper. "I honestly can't remember. I remember a lot of trees and you hiding behind some brushes, but that's all. I don't remember seeing a building of any sort," I answered him as I thought back. "Did you hear that?" Griffin asked Jasper over the phone before putting the call on speaker. "That could literally be anywhere," Jasper shouted. I just shrugged my shoulders, not knowing what else to say. "Jasper, I wasn't exactly paying attention to where my powers took me in the future. I was too busy freaking out," I shouted back at him. Xandra was there for all of a few seconds. "You can't really expect her to have seen everything, Jasper," Griffin said in my defense. "You're right. I'm sorry, Xandra. It's been 3 days since everyone was taken, and we still have no idea where they went. Even our personal bonds with everyone are of no use. Not being able to track them down whatsoever is making me think that the witch on their side must be masking everything with dark magic," Jasper admitted. "Have you considered asking Svetlana?" I suggested. They both got quiet, and Griffin stared at me. "What?" "I'm trying not to rely on her too much right now," Jasper answered finally. "The moon goddess wasn't very happy with me the last time I asked Svetlana for help, apparently. Who cares what my mother thinks? Sarin and countless others are in trouble," I exclaimed. Griffin looked at me, surprised. "What? Just because she's the mother of all werewolves doesn't mean she can just pass judgment on him. Or us, for that matter." Yes, she can," Griffin argued back. "No, she can't. She has no room to judge anyone on anything. What has she done for us recently that gives her that right? All she's done is say what she wants to say, but I haven't seen or heard her do anything. Who is she to judge Jasper for asking a dark witch for help? Had she just gotten involved then, none of this would have ever happened." "Xandra, William already explained how the higher powers aren't allowed to get involved," Jasper pointed out. "Well, maybe they should. Things are so inked up in our world, and all the while, they just sit in the kingdom and watch it happen. Think about it, Sarin and her family, me and Alexa, JS family, and all this crap going with Kellen. All of this could have been stopped, but she and the other gods and goddesses chose to let it happen. And for what? To teach people a lesson? Please. I scoffed and crossed my arms. It's one thing to be a neutral party, but what she and other gods are doing is nothing short of absolutely nothing. Even the humans' god felt the need to wipe out half of the human race when things got so bad. Xandra, how do you know that? Griffin asked me. Anna. Oh. If the humans' almighty god is willing to kill his children, then I think our gods and goddesses should be able to do the same if it calls for it. My mother should have known what kind of werewolf Kellen was, even back then, but she chose to let him live. That one decision destroyed Sarin's life, caused her to lose Alexa and me, and it ruined our lives as well. William told us that choices we make can affect our lives and the lives of those around us, did he not? Griffin nodded, and Jasper agreed over the phone. The same thing applies to them. Only their decisions affect our entire species. Griffin tilted his head and raised his brows in realization. Jasper, she has a point. I couldn't agree more. Okay then. Call Svetlana. Have her use her dark magic to track down this dark witch helping Kellen and Kale Thornwood. Unless my mother wants to get involved, she has no right to say anything. You got balls, Xandra. Some big B.rass balls. Neither one of us would ever talk about our moms that way. Especially if she were a goddess, Jasper told me. Well, unlike you two, I don't really know my mother now, do I? I don't know the moon goddess or Megan, I said without remorse. I guess I have a dark witch to summon. I'll let you know something as soon as I get a hold of her, Jasper said before hanging up. When the line went dead, Griffin looked at me with a raised brow. What? Are you really that resentful towards the moon goddess over everything that has happened? Yes. And I'm not Kale Thornwood aimed to admit it. I don't even care if she hears this. She needs to know that this whole thing about not getting directly involved is complete bullshit. She made her choices, and now she has to live with them. Just like we do too. I won't deny that this whole clone thing was a stupid idea. To begin with, but the one person who has no right to say anything to anyone about choices being made is her. Xandra, she's still your mother. She's technically our mother. Exactly. She's the mother of all werewolves, which means she should be making decisions that help us live long and prosper. But she doesn't. She just watches SHT hit the fan and then has the nerve to talk SHT. Xandra, I think you're being too harsh. No, I'm not. It's just like raising a child. You would never allow Killian to make a stupid choice that could affect his entire future, would you? Or allow someone to harm him for their own personal gain? Of course not. What kind of parent would I be if he paused and looked at me when he finally understood what I was trying to say? Exactly. But Xandra, it's different for the gods and goddesses of the supernatural. They don't just have one child, they have millions. Selene literally has millions of children, and she has to look after all of them. She can't just snap her finger to create a utopia for us just because there are a few bad apples. I'm not saying she has to. I'm saying she should try to be involved in her children's lives if she actually cares about their well-being. If she had just made the choice to get rid of Kellen, then everything that has happened over the last 20+ years would have never come to pass. Sarin would have grown up with her family. Alexa and I would have grown up in the kingdom. All those people that Kellen murdered would still be alive. And all of the pack members that he's currently holding hostage, goddess only knows where would be home with their families. Griffin sighed and just rubbed his face. Okay, I get it. I see your point. But none of that matters right now. What's happened has happened, and now we have to find Sarin and the others, he told me. I nodded my head and finally let it go. I stood up from my seat, went over to him, and sat on his lap to calm down some more. He wrapped his arms around me and tenderly kissed my cheek. Do you think Svetlana will be able to find Sarin and the others? I asked him softly. I don't know, but I hope so, he answered. Hey, someone shouted as they burst through the door. What is it, Brent? Griffin asked. It's Everett. He's back. Brent announced with a huge smile. What? We both shot up out of our seats and ran out of the office. We followed Brent to the main living room, where Richard was helping Everett sit on the sofa. Everett! Griffin called out as he quickly kneeled in front of him. You look like SH.T., old man. I feel like SH.T., Everett replied. I don't understand. How did you escape? Richard asked him. It wasn't easy, but they were transferring me and a few others, and I was able to break away. I had to fight quite a few rogues, but I was able to get to freedom relatively quickly. What about Sarin? I asked him. I didn't see the young Luna. We were all held in different cells. I know I saw the beta of Blue Lake. He was captured by the Dark Witch when he followed his mate who had been kidnapped. Yet, Jasper told us that his sister had been taken and that his beta went after her, Griffin informed him. Everett, what else can you tell us? Richard asked. Not much. Kellen does have more followers than we anticipated. And I saw the Dark Witch that is helping them. She's powerful. She's the one who created the tornadoes that kidnapped everyone. I don't get it. Why didn't Kellen send people to recapture you? Brent asked. I don't think he cares too much about one missing wolf. I mean, I'm a retired beta. I don't think I can offer much to him. He probably just wanted to cut his losses. I looked at Everett and was confused because if there was one thing that Sarin said about Kellen, it's that he's not one to give up easily. The fact that he took pack members that are ranked or are related to ranked members must be for a specific reason. He wouldn't just cut his losses the way Everett was saying. I bit my bottom lip and looked back at Everett, studying his face carefully. Can you at least tell us where you were held or take us back there? Griffin asked. I'm sorry, no. Everett's answer threw us off, and I saw the moment Brent, Griffin, and Richard made eye contact with each other. Don't worry about it, old friend. Let's get you to the pack hospital, Richard said to him and had a few Omegas help Everett to his feet and escort him. Richard, a word please. Griffin said as soon as Everett was out of the room. Brent, go get Mav and Jay. This will be an all-ranked members meeting. Brent nodded his head without hesitation and left to find Mav and Jay. I found Alexa in the crowd and gestured for her to come with us. When we all went into Griffin's office, the air was tense, and I could just feel the weight of the uncomfortable silence that filled the room as we waited for Brent, Mav, and Jay. When they finally came in, Jay and Mav Kellenk were holding hands. Seeing that made me smile, and it was clear that they were heading in the right direction. What's going on? Mav asked as he and Jay took their seats. You heard that Everett is back, right? Griffin asked. Yeah, Trent told me via Mind Link. What's up? Well, we asked him a few questions, but one of his answers doesn't make sense, Brent replied. What do you mean? Griffin asked him to tell us where it is that he escaped from, but he said no. I told them. Mav Kellank and Jay both looked at me like I was the crazy one. What do you mean he said no? Jay asked. Are you sure he didn't say he didn't know? Mav asked. No, man, he said no. He didn't even hesitate or even try to think about it. He just flat out said no, Brent told him. Even if he had said he didn't know, it still wouldn't make any sense. Everett is a beta wolf by blood. He's trained to look at his surroundings and think on his feet. It doesn't matter that he's retired and no longer in his prime. Those skills are in his blood until he dies. His claim of not knowing wouldn't make sense. And his flat-out refusal to tell us where he was being held worries me, Richard explained. Something else he said didn't make sense. He said that Kellen would just cut his losses with his escape. But from what I've heard, Kellen isn't the type to just give up or cut his losses. Not after the things I've heard him do. Poisoning Sarin's dad, kidnapping our souls for money, forcing himself onto Megan, and faking his own death to avoid the death sentence. Everett's answers don't make any sense, I pointed out. Hold on, are you guys trying to say that isn't really Everett? Brent asked. No, babe, Alexa said to him. They're saying that Everett is lying. What? What reason would Everett have to lie to us? He's the former beta of this pack. There's only one reason for Everett to lie about why Kellen didn't chase after him and why he would refuse to tell us where he was being held, Griffin insisted. We all looked at him, and we all knew what he was thinking. No, man. It can't. He wouldn't, Brent stammered. Everyone could see the look of betrayal in his eyes. I'm sorry, brother, but it's the only explanation that makes sense. As much as I hate to admit it, I'm inclined to agree with Griffin, Richard confessed. Richard? He's your best friend. He was your beta. Brent shouted. I know, and it pains me to think that he would betray us. Betray me. But as Griffin said, it's the only explanation that makes sense for his responses to our questions. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Mav Kellank asked. Richard and Griffin nodded. Mav Kellank huffed and slouched back in his seat in shock. Jay held his hand to comfort him. No. No. I refuse to believe that Everett is the mole. He would never betray our pack like this. Brent screamed. I'm sorry, Brent, but it seems that is exactly what Everett did. And until we can prove his innocence, I'm going to have to place him under arrest, Griffin told him. He looked to Richard, who also nodded his head. Arg! Brent snarled and punched a gaping hole into the wall. Alexa ran over to him and hugged his neck to calm him down. He tried to push her away, but she wouldn't let him. Alexa held on tight, and Brent finally broke down and hugged her back. He fell to his knees and cried. Alexa looked at me, and I could see the tears in her eyes too. Griffin covered his face with his hands, and Richard hung his head back while resting his hands on his P.S. We have to figure out where they are, I said to everyone in the room. Unless we can get Everett to tell us, we have no idea where to start looking, Griffin replied without lifting his head. Alexa. She looked up at me. Do you think you can transport Griffin and Brent through time to see where Everett has been? Brent and Griffin both raised their heads and stared at me. I can try, but I can't promise anything, Alexa responded without confidence. If you can't, then we go to Plan B, I said. What Plan B? They all asked at the same time. We take a page out of Kellen's playbook, I replied and looked at everyone. We leverage him. How? Griffin asked me. He has a mate, doesn't he? Xandra, we can't. She's innocent. Alexa shouted at me. How do we know that? How do we know that she's not in on it too? If Everett could betray us, why couldn't Nina? I've known Nina since we were children. She would never do such a thing. But I can tell you that if she were to find out about Everett's betrayal, she would never forgive him, Richard replied. And Everett knows that better than anyone. Then, if Alexa's powers can't help us, we threaten to tell Nina. But we have to try and get Everett to tell us of his own accord first. If we can't, then we bring Nina into it, Griffin suggested, and we all nodded. I can't believe he would do this to us, Brent sobbed. It's like being betrayed by your own parent. Alexa ugged him again, and I looked over at Griffin, who was just as hurt as Brent was. I would never forgive Everett if he really was the mole. Chapter 72. Jasper's POV. It didn't take very long to get a hold of Svetlana to ask for her help again. She was more than happy to lend her assistance, but I knew that calling her would ultimately upset Selene. However, I couldn't help but replay everything that Xandra had said over the phone. In a way, she was right. There were a lot of things that could have been avoided had Selene gotten involved at the beginning of it all. But I couldn't dwell on that right now. I needed to find Sarin. There was no telling what Cale Thornwood and Kellen had planned for her and everyone else. So, when do we start? Svetlana asked. Before we do anything, I need you to try and track down Morgan. You said that you could use her magic as a homing beacon, right? Yes. That is why I'm asking when you want me to start. Right now. I shouted, my patience already wearing thin. Okay, okay. You do not need to shout at me, Alpha Jasper, she fussed and got to work. As I sat and watched her, Keaton, Jason, Angelo, and Maddox were going over places on the map they had already searched. I was about to join them on the map to see their progress when my phone rang. Hello. Jasper, we may have something. How soon can you get here? Griffin sounded rather serious. What? What's going on? We think we know who sold us out. What? I don't want to discuss this over the phone. How fast can you get here? It's going to take me a few hours if I drive. What's going on, Griffin? I'll tell you when you get here. Just be careful, and make sure that you're not followed. He hung up without waiting for my reply. What's going on? Jason asked when he saw my confused expression. That was Griffin. He needs me to get there ASAP. He said he thinks he may know who sold us out. What are we waiting for? Let's go then. Keaton shouted. Jace, I need you to stay. That, he cut me off. I'm not staying here, Jasper. My mom is out there. Don't even think about telling me to stay either. My brother is out there too. Keaton objected before I could even say anything to him. We can't all leave. I told them. If you're worried about leaving the pack unprotected, don't be. Our parents can hold down the fort while we get our pack members back, Jason reassured me. I wanted to protest, but the look on everyone's faces was already telling me that I was fighting a losing battle. So, I just nodded in agreement. Okay, my wolfies, let's go then. Svetlana said a little too cheerfully while standing from her seat. We all just looked at her and furrowed our brows. What? I thought you were going to work on finding the Dark Witch helping the Pattersons, Maddox pointed out. I will, but if Griffin knows something, then it may help give me a starting point. I mean, it's possible to do it on my own, but it will take longer, she replied. No time for arguments, come. I will teleport us to Golden Moon, she announced with almost too much enthusiasm in her voice. Why are you so eager to go there? Keaton asked her. And don't tell us it's because you're eager to help, I argued while eyeing her. She pursed her lips together and just shrugged. You wolves are so nosy. If you must know, there is a handsome silver wolf I want to see again, she admitted. What? Are you saying that you have a crush on one of the older wolves at Golden Moon? Angelo asked. Yes. Now come. We must hurry. Alpha Griffin said it was urgent. No. Her urgency is because she wants to get laid, Keaton muttered. I smacked him upside the head. Ow. Grow up. You have a pup on the way. He rubbed his head and glared at me. Are you glaring at your alpha? No, sir, he quickly replied and fixed his gaze. I didn't think so. After that was situated, I linked my father to let him know of the potential development and that we were going to Golden Moon. Of course, he was more than happy to be in charge. Sometimes I wonder if all fathers regret giving up their TLES to their sons. Dylan and Felix wanted to come along as well, but with Keaton and Jason coming, it was even more crucial for them to stay behind. They were disappointed but understood. We didn't waste any more time, and Svetlana quickly teleported all of us to Golden Moon. I had made sure to text Griffin to let him know of the slight change in plans. He said that he would be prepared for us to arrive, and when we did, he was ready. It wasn't hard to read the room when I saw everyone's faces dark, sad, and angry. Especially Brent and Richard. I'm here, Griffin. What's going on? I asked while trying to assess everyone's somber expressions. Not here. Follow us, he replied. We all nodded, and he led the way. I noticed right away that we were heading towards their pack hospital. Griffin, why are we going to your hospital? I questioned him. He barely looked back but didn't say anything. No one did, for that matter. It was eerily silent. I looked at Jason, who just shrugged his shoulders. We continued to follow him and the others, and we stopped in front of a hospital room. Beyond this door is the mole that betrayed us, Griffin announced, looking at the door. Okay? Are you going to tell us who it is? Jason asked. It's someone that we all know very well. And before you ask, Jasper, yes, we did verify this accusation, and he's been placed under arrest. I just have to ask that you refrain from trying to kill him. We need him alive. What? You'll see. Griffin turned to Richard, who nodded, and they opened the door. The individual I saw lying in the hospital bed, handcuffed with silver, made all of the hair on my body stand up. What spot? Jason exclaimed when he too saw who it was. Yo, isn't that Everett, the former beta? I just nodded. Everett's head immediately turned to face us, and he only rolled his eyes before turning his head in the other direction. I was about to charge in when Griffin closed the door. Open the door, Griffin. I shouted. Jasper, this is my pack. Do not command me, I'm an alpha too. I asked you to refrain from killing him because we need him alive. I will not repeat myself. I don't understand. Why did your former beta betray your pack? Keaton asked. Was he leveraged? Angelo suggested. Not by Kellen if that's what you're asking, Xandra replied. I snapped my head towards her. Yes, we leveraged him into telling us what we wanted to know. What did you leverage? Maddox asked. His mate. Xandra. I exclaimed. Hey, it's his own fault. He's the one who decided to get into bed with Kellen. He betrayed us. We tried to do it the easier way, which was to have Alexa send Griffin and Brent back in time to see where Kellen had supposedly escaped from. But that didn't work, so we came down here and demanded answers. He refused to give them, Alexa interjected. So, you leveraged him by using his mate against him? I asked. Not really. She leveraged herself technically, Xandra responded. When we told her what we were thinking, she didn't want to believe us at first. But, then we explained why we thought what we did, she decided to get to the bottom of it herself. It was all her after that. What did she say? Or do, for that matter? Keaton asked. Since they're mates, she can obviously tell when he's lying. It also didn't help that she asked the same questions we did, but he gave slightly different answers than what he had told us. That's how we knew for sure that he wasn't a victim but rather a participating party. Nina threatened to reject him and tell their kids if he didn't come clean. If he admitted to what he did, then she wouldn't reject him or tell. But she did tell him that they were done as mates. Even if she didn't reject him completely, she would never accept him again, Richard explained. So, he's the mole? I asked to be sure. Griffin and Richard nodded. What did he tell his mate? Jason asked. He told her that he was approached by Kellen a couple of months ago. Not too long after the attempted attack that should have taken place during the ceremony. Everett said that Kellen offered him a large sum of money and said that if he helped kill Richard and me, then he would give Golden Moon to him. Wait, are you saying that he did all of this for power? Keaton asked. You told me that he was happy to retire, I said. That's what he told us, and it was partially true. But as soon as he did, he realized that he was no longer needed and was completely cast aside while Richard was training to become an elder. Jealousy? Are you serious right now? I griped. It's what he told Nina, Griffin answered. What else did he say? Did he tell her are you all where everyone is being held? Maddox questioned. When we had asked him again, he told us he didn't know. Naturally, we thought he was lying, but he said that before he escaped, or rather, was released to come back here, he was given a potion by the Dark Witch working with the Pattersons. A mind-wiping potion, no doubt, Svetlana chimed in and came forward. That's what we're thinking, Brent replied. It's obvious that's what it was. Patterson made him take it so that he wouldn't be able to tell anyone where they were hiding on the off chance he was figured out. You were right, Jasper, Patterson is not stupid. If his memory has been wiped, then how are we supposed to find everyone? Keaton shouted. Calm yourself, young beta. Morgan's potions are no match for mine. The potion she gave him can actually be countered with another potion. Think of it as an antidote. It will counteract the herbs that cause the resulting short-term amnesia, and he will soon be, how do you say, singing like a cardinal. It's canary singing like a canary, I corrected her. To by ni, she said and waved me off. What? She said whatever, Richard answered. We all looked at him in shock. You speak Russian? Svetlana asked and lifted her brows, looking impressed and what appeared to be turned on. My grandmother immigrated from Ukraine. I used to speak to her in Russian. I remember the small things, Krasivaya Jenshkina. We had no idea what Richard had just said, but Svetlana literally turned beet red, and the smell of her arousal was palpable. Are they rooting? Jason asked in a whisper only I could hear. I thought he had a mate. Who died over 20 years ago, I whispered back. You don't think? Could she be his second chance? I looked at him like he was insane. What? William is mated to a witch. Olivia is a light witch. Svetlana isn't. Chosen mate then? Is an elder allowed to choose a dark witch as a mate? How spot am I supposed to know? You're the alpha. I just gave him a look of condemnation and then turned my attention back to the room. Svetlana, how long does it take to make the potion? Oh, not long at all, Jasper. An hour, 2 at most. She stole a glance at Richard again before leaving the hospital room. I wonder what Haley would think if she found you making eyes at a dark witch, Richard. Everett shouted from the hospital room. You want to judge me for betraying the pack? At least I would never betray my mate the way you are. Dead or not. To replace her with a dark witch. That's low even for you. Without hesitation, Richard threw open the door and snarled at Everett. I wouldn't be talking if I were you, you backstabbing. Betraying this pack means you automatically betrayed Nina. And don't you ever speak Haley's name ever again. You don't have the right to speak her name. You say that she would feel betrayed by me. No, she wouldn't. Before Haley died, she made me promise that I would not die alone. That if I found the chance at love again, whether it was with a second chance or a chosen mate, then I would go for it. Haley would be happy for me. But I can't say the same for you. How are you going to explain to her what you've done? You never should have been alpha of this pack. You're not even from this pack. Everett shouted. What? We all exclaimed. Richard stood up straight and faced all of us. Richard, what is he talking about? Griffin asked. Tell them, Richard. Tell them how you only became alpha because of Haley. It's true. As I mentioned, my grandmother is from Ukraine, and she immigrated here. But she didn't just come to the United States. She was in an arranged marriage to an alpha. I do have alpha blood in me, but not of this pack. I had 3 older brothers. So, naturally, my eldest brother became alpha, and he chose his beta and gamma. My other brothers found their own mates, and they all happened to be alpha females. None of which were pure bloods. Regardless, they all became alphas of their own packs that way, and that's how I too became alpha. Your mate was the daughter of the alpha here. I asked him. He nodded his head. That's how I obtained the alpha TLE. A TLE that should have gone to the oldest blood-related male to the alpha. Everett shouted. Blood-related? Keaton questioned. Everett is Haley's first cousin from her father's side, Richard answered. Hold up, Everett is an alpha by blood as well. Jason exclaimed. Yes, but his father was the beta before him. Which was why when Haley and I found out we were mates, and since I too have alpha blood, her father gave the alpha TLE to Haley. That was the only stipulation he had for her. Her mate had to be an alpha to be given the alpha TLE from him. But since females aren't actually given the TLE alpha, it was handed to me, and she became the Luna. Wait, Xandra said, waving her hands while trying to get an understanding. You're telling us that you betrayed this entire pack, all because you were passed over as alpha, 30+ years after the fact. Talk about holding a grudge, Alexa muttered. Haley was never meant to lead this pack. You were never meant to lead this pack. I trained my entire life to take over after my uncle, but then you just had to come along and ruin everything. Everett wailed. You're a contradictive piece of SHT, Everett. Brent shouted at him. You told me that being the beta of this pack was the biggest honor you ever had, that you don't regret a day of it. But, now, all of a sudden, you hate Richard because he became alpha instead of you? Did you ever consider the fact that you were never meant to be alpha? That even if it weren't Richard, some other alpha wolf would have been mated to Luna Haley. It shouldn't have mattered. Werewolf law does not permit women to be alphas of packs. Where the hell did you read that? I asked while stepping over to him. I don't know who told you that, Everett, but there is no law stating that females can't be alphas. If you haven't noticed, Sarin, my mate, she's also an alpha by blood. Pure blood, to be exact. If she and I weren't mated and Silver Moon hadn't been destroyed, she would have been the next alpha in line because Mitch and Megan didn't have a son. A werewolf pack cannot continue to exist without an alpha to lead it, even if it means a female becomes the alpha. Not only have you lost the respect of every person in this room, but I'm pretty sure you've lost the respect of everyone in your pack. You betrayed them and put their loved ones in danger. You want to know what it's like to be an alpha, I growled while getting in his face. Being an alpha means putting your pack above yourself. Now, I may not be a perfect alpha, and I may have made some stupid choices along the way, but I would never, ever, betray my pack or my mate the way you have. You better pray that Svetlana's potion can counteract the SHT that Morgan gave you, Griffin said and got into his face. Because if anyone from any of the packs dies due to your betrayal, I'm going to expose to you all of the other alphas in the region. I'm sure they'll want a piece of the action when it comes to your punishment. You can't do that, Everett gritted his teeth. Actually, he can. You would know that if you legitimately knew werewolf law. Your actions have put members of other packs in danger. The type of danger that easily could cost them their life. If Kellen or anyone in his family or the Dark Witch kills any of them, not only will you be punished by our pack, but you will also be punished by theirs, Richard told him. Before he could reply, I grabbed the front of his hospital gown and pulled him to my face as I snarled. And if one of those happens to my mate, not only will you be punished for her life, but also the life of our unborn pup. Chapter 73. Alexa's POV. As promised, it didn't take long for Svetlana to prepare the counteractive potion that we needed to move forward with our plan. Everett had no choice but to take it since it was either that or Nina would reject him and tell his daughters what he had done. Personally, I thought it was a little much getting Nina involved, but Richard was right about one thing: she would never forgive Everett for betraying the pack and their family the way he had. Everett gulped down the potion, and immediately, it started to take effect. Question after question, Everett spilled the beans about where he had come from and where everyone was being held. He even told us which cell everyone was being kept in. Imagine our surprise when he revealed they never actually left the Silver Lake territory. That gaping hole in the ground that Jasper's trackers saw was just an illusion created by the Dark Witch Morgan. I was wondering why my senses kept telling me they were there. But I thought it was a mistake, Svetlana said. That sniveling little toad. She thinks she can outsmart me. Take your revenge when we get there, Svetlana, Jasper told her, trying to keep her temper in check. Oh, believe me. I will, she responded while tightening her fists. All of a sudden, Richard put his hands over them, and she visibly relaxed instantly. You will get your chance. We all will. Kellen has terrorized us long enough. This was the last straw, he assured Svetlana, never taking his eyes off her. Griffin, get your men together. Richard, please reach out to the other alphas and see if they're willing to join the fight to rescue their pack members, Jasper instructed them. They both nodded. Svetlana, let's go. What? She hesitated, clearly saddened by the fact that she had to leave. I mean, yes, let us go and plan. Oh, please, Xandra muttered. We already know that you and Richard like each other. Richard, is she your second chance or your new chosen? Xandra asked. Xandra. Griffin scolded her. What? I couldn't stop the giggle that came out of my mouth. I mean, Richard, Xandra has a point. You and Svetlana are pretty obvious, I told him. They looked at each other, and Richard just smiled. She's my new chosen. I fell for her when she came to collect the samples. I saw her at the gate, and her unique beauty caught my eye. Just a heads up, Richard, but Selene isn't a big fan of Svetlana's, Jasper interjected. And I honestly could care less what the moon goddess thinks. She had her chance. I had 4 years with Haley before the moon goddess took her from me, and she wouldn't give me the decency of a second chance. Who I decide to choose as my mate is none of her concern. Besides, I'm going to be an elder. Having a powerful witch on our council will ensure that no one ever infringes upon our region again. You want to add Svetlana to the Council of Werewolves? Jasper shouted in disbelief. Yes. And Jonah is okay with this? Griffin asked, sounding a little unsure. It was Jonah's idea, actually. Of course, this was after I had told him that I wanted to take Svetlana as my chosen. Besides, if William can have the most powerful light witch as a mate, then why can't I have the most powerful dark witch as mine? All of our mouths dropped to the floor. Richard, the man I thought would never break the rules and lived by noble principles, actually wanted to be mated to a dark witch. Okay. I mean, if that's what you want. I guess we support you, Griffin said as he rubbed the back of his neck. Griffin, I know that this may be a delicate subject for you, given what Svetlana was originally planning to do with Killian. But she told me that she would have brought him back to you the moment she found out that he wasn't actually of ranked blood. And I believe her, Richard sympathized with him while still holding his ground. Griffin looked at the two of them and seemed to be deep in thought. Xandra took his hand and smiled up at him. He nodded his head and smiled as well. I believe her too. Congratulations, Richard. I am truly happy for you. As soon as Griffin gave in and said those words, Richard spun Svetlana, dipped her, and kissed her. Xandra, Jay, and I cheered for them while the guys howled. When they broke their KSS, Svetlana looked to be in a daze. Richard, we will see you soon. Come now, Svetlana, Jasper said and gently pulled her. Richard watched them like a hawk with a smile on his face the whole time. Du skoro I vistraki, lyubimai, Richard told her, making her blush even redder than she already was. Jasper and the others disappeared in an instant, and all that remained was our pack. What did you say to her? Jay asked. See you soon, darling. Xandra and I smiled. Richard, Brent got his attention. What is it? We have a situation, he said and awkwardly pointed down while averting his eyes. Naturally, we all looked to where Brent was pointing with curiosity. Oh, God! I shouted and covered my eyes. EWWW! Xandra and Jay both cried. Richard! Come on, old man! Mav Kellan complained. What? All of you young ones act as if older werewolves don't have X. Richard shouted back. Come on, we all yelled and quickly ran out of the room, leaving Richard laughing behind us. Xandra, Jay, and I ran ahead of the guys, and we giggled the entire time. Despite all the stress our pack has gone through, it was so gratifying to see Jay coming out of her shell over the last few months. So, Jay, I started to say while looking behind us to make sure that Mav Kellenk wasn't listening. How are things with Mav going? She glanced back at him as well and then smiled sweetly. Things are going great. He has been so patient with me and Zahara, and she's really starting to take to this whole mate thing. What about you? Xandra asked. I am too. Zahara is still a little overprotective, but Arcos seems to be breaking down her walls too. So, you two do let your wolves speak to each other. I continued. We do. Used to be that Arcos would have to beg before Zahara would say yes, but now, she seems to be one asking him to come out. So, does that mean you two are going to fully mate soon? Xandra asked. Xandra. I whispered. What? It's a legitimate question. It's none of your business, though. I gritted my teeth. No, Alexa, it's okay. I don't mind, Jay said. We haven't really talked about it. We haven't kissed yet. Well, I mean, I've kissed him on the cheek and vice versa. But full L, P-lock? Not yet. What are you waiting for? I asked her. You like him, he likes you, and you two are mates. Yeah, what's the hold-up? Xandra pressed. I'm just afraid of what he will think when he finds out what I had to do to survive, she answered. Xandra and I looked at each other confused. Jay, what are you talking about? Xandra asked. Yeah, he already knows. He was there when you were rescued, I added. He. What? She came to a stop as she tried to absorb what we said. Jay, Mav Kellenk knows everything already. He was there when Marvin had taken over your family's pack, remember? He told Mav Kellenk about everything that you had endured, I told her. Even though Xandra and I weren't there, we were told what happened. I don't remember him being there, she replied. Jay, he kept you safe the entire time from what everyone told us. You came back with him, and he's been by your side ever since, Xandra explained to her. Jay looked so confused. Honestly, things have been hazy about that day. I remember going back to my parents' pack and hearing that Marvin had killed them. I even remember the entire fight, but I can't remember the small details. I guess Mav Kellenk keeping me safe is one of them. After the initial attack, everything is a blur. It's not surprising. We turned and saw the guys staring at us. Jay, baby, you were traumatized more than once in your life. Going home to find out that it's no longer your home and that your parents were no longer part of this world can do a lot of damage to someone. It could be that Zahara is blocking out those memories to keep you from feeling sad all the time. To keep you from reliving that nightmare over and over, Mav Kellenk said while taking her hands in his. Our wolves can do that? Xandra asked. Yes, they can, Griffin answered. We share a mind with our wolves. They know everything we know, and we know everything they know. They feel what we feel, and we feel what they feel, whether it be sadness, anger, happiness, joy, even love. When we feel it, they feel it, and when they feel it, we do too. But our wolves are also there to protect us should the need arise. That includes physical pain or an emotional one. For Jay, it would have been the entire time she was held in captivity. And with her being a jade wolf, it's possible that Zahara is not only capable of blocking out the memories, but maybe even erasing them altogether. But why wouldn't Atlanta and Brooklyn do the same for us? Xandra asked. Not to discredit what you guys went through or make comparisons, Xandra, but what Jay had to do to stay alive was brutal. You two were lucky enough to escape before you were basically sold in slavery for breeding purposes. Jay, Unfortunately, wasn't that lucky, Mav replied. So, you're not disgusted by me? Jay asked him. What? Of course not. Jay, we're mates, and I've been waiting on you for a long time. When I found you and saw how broken you were, I knew that I couldn't leave you. I didn't just need to heal you for you, but I needed to heal you for me too. Because at one point in all of this, Zahara told Arcos that you wanted to take your own life. I what? I'm guessing by your reaction, Zahara blocked out that memory too. But, I don't want to die. Not anymore, I don't think. I want to be with you, and Xandra, and Alexa, and everyone else. I want to help to find Thomas and everyone else that is missing from the other packs. You what? We all exclaimed. I want to help. I can help. I'm a jade wolf, remember? I have the ability to track other werewolves by their powers and the power they emit. You can. Xandra and I shouted. Jay nodded. Xandra and I looked at each other, and we knew exactly what the other was thinking. Oh my god, there's two ways we can find everyone, Xandra said. Svetlana can find the Dark Witch Morgan, but if Jay can harness enough of her powers, then, I continued. Then she can track Sarin, we both said at the same time. I think it's a twin thing, I heard Brent say. Yup, Griffin replied. And that just gave me an idea. So, you're telling me that you want to use Jay to track Sarin? Jasper asked. After Jay had inspired us to use her powers to track down Sarin, we immediately called Jasper and had him come back with everyone he was bringing into the fight. From what we could see, it was pretty much everyone in his pack. Svetlana had to use a massive spell to transport everyone at once since she couldn't bring everyone attached to her. They're not the ones who suggested it, Alpha Jasper. I did, Jay told him. Please, Jay, it's just Jasper. Jasper. I've met Sarin enough times to have gotten a sense of how powerful she is. If she were to use her powers even once, for a second, Zahara and I can pick up on it and take you directly to her. Everett already told us where they are, though, Jasper insisted. No, Everett told us where they were hiding all of the captives from the other packs. We never specifically asked him where he was hiding the young Luna, Richard corrected. We really should have been more specific with our interrogation, and that's my oversight as Alpha of Golden Moon. I was so worked up over his betrayal that I didn't think he would use our questions against us. How do we know that they're not all being held together? Jasper countered. Something Sarin told us a while back, I answered. She told us that Cale Thornwood and Kellen never saw eye to eye and that Cale Thornwood would always press Kellen's buttons until he got his way or what he wanted. The same thing with Tessa. Right. Our thought is Cale Thornwood and Kellen planned the attack together but had different agendas or motives, Xandra continued. Kellen wants to get back at all of the Alphas and the Elders, I started to say. And Cale Thornwood wanted Sarin, we both finished. You two think that Kellen and Cale Thornwood split up? To throw us off? Jason asked us. It would make sense. Attack one location if found, then they could warn the other, Maddox responded. Kind of like what Marvin tried to do, Brent said. Okay, I'll buy into that theory, Jasper agreed and nodded his head. If Kellen is hiding out at Silver Lake in a mirage of some sort, then where spot would Cale Thornwood take Sarin? Xandra and I looked at each other and then back at him. What? Jasper, after Xandra and I talked about it, there was something about her 3-second trip to the future that I remembered, I said to him. What was it? There was nothing there, Xandra answered. You already told me that. No, Jasper, Listen to what she's saying, I told him. There was nothing there. She was in an empty field with some trees and brush. Jasper, Griffin got his attention. What other land do we know that currently has nothing? Jasper's eyes widened, and his eyebrows creased together. Are you trying to tell me that? We think she's back where all of this started for her and Cale Thornwood, I said to him. We think that he took her back to Blood Moon, Xandra continued. There's no way to prove that, Jasper disputed. Did you all ask Everett? Everett told us all he knew, Svetlana assured everyone. And how do you know this? Richard asked her sweetly. Well, I may have also added a few ingredients to turn it into a truth serum, she quietly admitted. But it's too late to ask him now. It would have worn off by now. Why wouldn't he tell us everything we needed to know when we questioned him earlier? Keaton asked. Because the questions were too vague, Richard answered. We were only asking where he came from and where Kellen was keeping the hostages. We never once asked specifically about Sarin or Cale Thornwood. And the truth can be manipulated. We just assumed that they were all together. So, you're telling me that Sarin is alone with that piece of SHT? Need I remind you all that Sarin is currently pregnant? Far enough along to where her scent is going to be changing or already has. Do you know what he will do if he? Nothing is going to happen to Sarin or your pup, Jasper. Xandra shouted at him and put her hands on his shoulders. And how do you know? Because I've seen it. Are you allowed to tell me that? He asked her. Maybe not, but right now, rules and secrets can kiss me. What's that saying? See something, say something. Xandra, baby, that applies to when rules and laws are being broken, Griffin told her. Oh, well, whatever. I'm going to interpret it the way I want to. All of us just laughed and smiled at her. Thank you, Xandra. I needed to hear that, Jasper said while giving her a side age.ug. I guess it's my turn to tell you what I saw on my own also, I mentioned to him. He looked over at me with a questionable expression. What did you see? He asked. Let me just say this, I said while walking up to him and gesturing for him to get down to my level. He bent down and I got in his ear. Has your date planning gotten any better? Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.